the coast of Georgia. A coast of historic places, beautiful beaches, and serene nature. Ride to Jekyll Island with me. Visit one of the most mystical places of the Georgian coast and learn more about the history of the former millionaire's village. Hello Georgia, hello the Peach State, that's how Georgia is called as well. And this is our second state of this trip. Before I could even say a proper goodbye, my ride through Florida was over already, and Georgia was next. I had traveled the state Georgia quite extensively on my last journey. For those of you who don't remember, I visited Georgia's highest mountain that was covered in fog completely, and then famous Darien and lovely St. Mary's right at the border to Florida. I can highly recommend all these destinations for stopping by if you travel the state for the first time. So this is the exact road I rode last year already, but I had very different stops than this year, because Georgia is pretty big. There are as well a lot of things to discover and to do, and I hope that I will be able to show you some more this time. The Peach State is physically immense, the largest east of the Mississippi River, so there are countless more highlights to discover. But many people these days might wonder why Georgia is actually called the Peach State, because these days Georgia's most valuable fruit crop is the blueberry. But indeed, the peach first made its way to the US from China's Silk Road via Europe and Georgia. It is recorded that monks introduced peaches to St. Simon's and Cumberland Islands along Georgia's coast in 1571. So today's goal is a very special one and a destination that I skipped on my last trip, and I really don't know who of you guys remembers this, but the last time I went first to St. Simon's Island and then I wanted to go to Jekyll Island, but there was an accident, so the road to Jekyll Island was closed and I couldn't go, and so I went to St. Mary's instead. And now we will do what I missed out on last time, Jekyll Island. So, and this is it. It seems that you have to pay a parking fee when riding on Jekyll Island, because it's actually a state park. So yes, that's what you have to do as a tourist. I actually don't know if people who live there needs to pay it. Probably not. Jekyll Island is actually one big state park, but then it's also a town and a collection of beaches and hotels. The island is rich in history and legend. Native Americans, Spanish missionaries, English settlers, French planters, millionaires, modern residents and tourists have all played a part in the not always shiny history of Jekyll Island. Jekyll Island is now a family resort with 10 miles of public beaches. So that's it, my accommodation for tonight. I didn't have a big choice because everything is so booked this weekend. So we will see. Hotel prices got so expensive here since COVID. So I always hope that the places are worth their money because often they are still not very nice and you pay a lot. But let's stay positive and hope this one is nice. Do you know where this is?
110.
Ah, it's right here?
Sí, aquí.
Okay, so I park here.
Sí.
I will give you a heads up for all future episodes. Nearly all hotels and accommodations I stayed on this trip were not chosen because I pre-planned my trip and thought they would be great to stay at, but because they were the ones available at the end of my riding days. The Days Inn and Suites on Jekyll Island turned out to be a quite good value for its money though. Situated directly at one of the scenic sand beaches of Jekyll Island.
All those little moments, the bus you didn't catch me looking over your shoulder, just at the right time. Those little moments all let me
Beautiful, but look at this water. It's very, very wild.
all those little moments.
First time swimming in Georgia? Check!
Georgia, in my opinion, is a little bit underrated. Maybe not in the United States of America itself, because I feel people that come from the US, they like to go to Georgia and they like to visit. But I think people from Europe maybe don't have Georgia on top of their bucket list normally, which I think can be a mistake because it has quite a lot of things to offer. It's not the most fancy state in the United States, that's for sure, but it has a very genuine charm in my opinion. And I have been traveling here on my last journey. I have been going through the north of Georgia where the mountains are to the highest mountain, Breast Top Bull, and then I have been traveling kind of like across Georgia and went to the coast, and I have already visited St. Simon's Island and St. Mary's, which is on the border to Florida, and both of those were absolutely lovely. If I had to choose one thing to do in Georgia, I would not choose the mountains, which I think is very rare for me because normally I would always choose the mountains. But here in Georgia, I definitely would choose to go to a place at the coast because I think the coast here has very green and very lush environments. And I think that is pretty nice and as well pretty special. So go to the coast.
So let's go explore more of Jekyll Island before we continue. And our first stop will be one of the most famous beaches at the Georgia coast. And I as well wanted to go here already last year because maybe it's even the most famous beach in Georgia. So I'm very curious. I'm heading to Driftwood Beach now, and as you can see behind me, it's super jungly here. And this beach is supposed to be one of the most beautiful beaches on earth. Driftwood Beach has got to be one of the greatest places for pictures in the United States. It's a truly unique landscape you won't see anywhere else, and it's one of the most popular places on the island. While there are countless beautiful beaches on the Georgia coast, Driftwood Beach might be the most iconic. Originally a forest, the northern end of the island has slowly eroded over time, washing the soil away and leaving behind the trees that once grew in that soil. An otherworldly sight that makes you feel like walking along gigantic dinosaur bones. So this is Driftwood Beach. It's actually kind of majestic with these huge trees that are here on the beach.
I think you only get a perspective on how big they are if you see a person next to them.
That was nice. I wish I was not in motorcycle clothes, otherwise I would have gone swimming again. But I was just too lazy to take my things off. That's how it mostly is. So now off to the next part that is supposed to be worth to see here on Jekyll Island. And that's the historic district. So this should be it. Let's have a look in here. This is supposed to be the historical district. I have to admit, I somehow thought it's more like an actual old town, but it seems like the buildings are pretty good distributed here on the grounds. So let's drive around a little bit and check them out. After a period of private plantation ownership, the island was sold to a group of very wealthy individuals in 1886 who formed the Jekyll Island Club, including such family names as Rockefeller, Pulitzer, Vanderbilt, Goodyear, Macy, J.P. Morgan and others. The Jekyll Island Club was called the richest, most exclusive and the most inaccessible club in the world. 1/6 of the world's wealth vacationed on Jekyll Island at that time. The landmark historic district is therefore as well termed the Millionaire's Village and contains 33 historic structures on its 240-acre site. The club era eventually came to an end as a result of World War II, and in 1947 Jekyll Island was purchased by the state of Georgia and since then is maintained as a state park.
Riding the coast of Georgia is not like riding the coast of Florida, at least not the east coast of Florida though, because unfortunately you can't really ride along the coast. You have to more or less ride on the big Autobahn interstate I-95, which of course is not really scenic, and then you have to go off from that and take dead-end roads to the islands and places on the coast you want to go to, from where you then can head back to the bigger roads. That's a bit shame because you really have to choose your destinations here in Georgia, so it's not as easily accessible as the Florida coast. But if you have the choice, coast or mountains, coast or inland, even though you have to kind of ride on the interstate, I'm still voting strongly for the coast after having experienced both. I mean, look at this. Super nice.
Goodbye, Jekyll Island. This was a very nice day, and now off to the next adventure.
Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together?
At that point of the day, I actually had no clue where I really wanted to go and end up in the evening. But every single person I met and talked to told me Georgia's city Savannah is the place to see. And I actually considered going there. But breakfast was first. Guys, do you see the completely wet roads here? While I was at breakfast, it actually started to pour down, but not just like pouring down, like really crazy. And I was sitting in this diner now for nearly 2 hours, waiting that it would get slightly better. So let's hope that the rain now passed and that the weather is good from here on. My wish unfortunately didn't become reality. Every longer journey eventually will reach this one point, the point where things don't go exactly as imagined. And unfortunately, it really started to pour down. Part of the rain was so heavy and strong that I was not even able to switch on my camera anymore. And even though I wore my rain gear, the water started to crawl in under my suit. This was when I decided to not stop in Georgia's city Savannah, but to continue north until I would finally find the sun again. And I really did find the sun, but only many hours later. Guys, even though this day didn't have a happy ending, I hope you enjoyed the ride to Georgia. If you did, give this video a thumbs up and comment, and don't forget to hit the bell button to subscribe to my channel. Next week you will find out if I managed to escape the rain and explore the coast of South Carolina and North Carolina with me. Like always, tune in next Thursday and enjoy the ride.